Hello and welcome to Last on the Brakes, the MotoGP podcast, coming at you in 2020 a little bit different, by which we mean, I think it's safe to say, bigger and better.
Bigger and better, yeah. Pretty obvious, given that you're probably watching this on video or listening to this on basically any podcasting platform there is out there. Last year we were exclusive to one platform. This year we're everywhere. Sorry about that. You have to put up with our faces, I guess. But yeah, there will be Last on the Brakes. We're doing feature interviews, recording them every Thursday of the GP with a brand new guest, but they'll be released on a slightly different schedule. But there should be podcasts, including After the Flag, every Monday throughout the season. So how exciting. And as you can probably see, if you're watching this, we have a very special guest today to kick off episode 1 in 2020. It's Randy Mamola, MotoGP legend. Welcome aboard.
Well, it's good to be here, Matt.
Welcome aboard the Good Ship podcast.
And this very, very posh room that we're in the Dorna Sports office in Barcelona. This is we've got a bit of a ghetto setup with the mics there, lots of tape around to make sure everything's secure. So we've got to make sure.
I don't know what you mean. This is an entirely pro environment.
Just be careful if you cross your legs and whatnot, and it'll be fine. Before we get underway, though, do have a little bit of admin to and a little bit of a plug. The MotoGP Fantasy League, brand new for 2020. You can find that on MotoGP.com. Go to that, sign up with your team, get your mates involved. I can't remember. I don't know how much. Don't ask me the details about it, but
okay,
make
ask
sure you
me
go
the
and do
details
it.
about it.
What are the details?
It's great, actually. It's got us all quite excited, and we have already started our own private within the department
I
league.
need to do this before Qatar.
Basically, it's like, those kind of games are pretty prolific in different sports. Ours is you manage 2 teams, gold team, silver team, with different riders in them, and you score based on their real life Grand Prix performance. And there's a few cool prizes up for grabs if you play in like the big overall league, like a Marquez signed helmet, I think is one of them, Tissot watch, maybe. Okay. But you can also do private leagues. So if there's someone you really want to make the point that you're a much better fan than they are, then you can challenge them in your own little
Have you got a name
deal?
For your team yet?
No, not yet.
Randy, if you had a fantasy league team, what would your name be?
Starting with the deep dive questions.
Mamola.
Well, I can't actually repeat.
Mamola, I believe it. I like it. So.
Yeah.
Can't actually repeat some of the names of obviously some of our friends who've already signed up. Some of them are a bit not safe for podcasts. Well, maybe they are, depends on the platform. But I think we should probably kick it off, shall we? With actually interviewing Randy. I haven't got you for too long. But Randy, first thing I want to ask you, because it's been a very busy off season for you. In amongst all your holidaying, you've been a full-time Instagram influencer. Tell me about that.
You can tell which one of us decided on this question, can't you?
Listen. I think the funny part about the Instagram, official Randy Mamola Instagram, was my daughter started it. Without me knowing.
Oh, really?
So
even better.
If you take a look at the very first video where I'm dancing in a tuxedo, that was at the Goodwood Festival of Speed last year in July. And what was funny about that is the very next Grand Prix was, I think, 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks away, which was flying to Brno. So as I was getting on the plane, as I do here in Barcelona to fly to Vienna, there's a lot of people that could be from Dorna or the press and so on. And as I'm walking in the plane, they said, "Man, great dancing." What are you talking about? 'Cause I haven't seen them for 3 weeks. So what are you talking about? Your Instagram. I don't have an Instagram. Maybe somebody put it up on there. No, you have one. So, so I went home, and my lovely daughter, she's the one that typed it out, and she didn't even give me the password, nothing. And she just said, what a way to start your first Instagram.
Semi-viral amongst the paddock and whatnot.
So it's been growing a lot, except for the fact that I still don't understand a lot of the mechanisms. For example, every once in a while, and maybe you can help me here, Matt, is when I'm putting a story up, and then eventually I delete the story, and the next morning that same story is still back up.
Don't know. We'll have to go have a look through after the podcast. I can't think of that off the top of my head.
But I'm having fun with it. And I tell you what, it's very unique, as you know. I love fans. I love interacting with the fans, and like what you're talking about, having the fantasy league and so on, is to create things that they can be closer to us, of what we do in our sport, the direction of our sport, and so on. Which I think is so important. And, you know, my son and my daughter and my wife, they're always laughing because I'm conversating with people straight away with it. And they're going, you know, this guy says, I really wish I could do get a picture of you and so on and so forth. He sent a picture, and I've got this new Note Samsung that has a pin. And I just signed it right away and just sent it back. And he
really?
just went, oh, wow. And please don't start sending a whole bunch of requests and me signing pictures.
You can
but
find
conversation,
official Randy Mamola.
yeah, conversations, I love. And it's always, you know, you have the one that's against you or for you or in the middle. And it's just unique to see.
Yeah, official Randy Mamola and verified.
Yes.
7,000 followers.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
It's growing.
It's pretty good.
It's growing.
You going to be on TikTok anytime soon?
I have no idea what TikTok is, other than the fact that I see it in the right-hand corner.
Yeah.
And I know people are able to do great things on it and so on and so forth. Listen, I'm telling you, I have so many ideas, but I just don't know how to get it across on there.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
I follow a few of the Formula One guys, and they're very creative. Jorge, as you know, Lorenzo, is just taking off in all directions.
Creative, is that the word? For Lorenzo's Instagram?
I'm not sure.
But unleashed.
Yeah. But again, it's something that draws you to the...
Yeah,
exactly.
I feel a lot more connected to Jorge Lorenzo these days.
Exactly, but that's also what the podcast is about, the deep dive interview, because we want to know about the personalities.
Exactly.
Because we get a lot of camera time with a lot of our riders in the paddock, but it's usually about the same topics, obviously about track action, setup, whatever. With testing, it's about trying to back them into a corner and make Danilo Petrucci very uncomfortable by asking him a direct question about the ride height adjuster, you know. But we don't get to see too much of the sort of, the people behind the helmet.
Quite
right.
So it is a lot of fun when you see every now and then on social media and the like.
Yeah, the other thing that I'm very critical about is there's a lot, Yamaha put something up, or Dorna, or MotoGP would put something up. And if I put something positive for Valentino, then other people might say, why are you now praising Valentino when before you said these things? And listen, what I said before, I meant whatever it was. And what I'm saying now, I mean as well. And, I don't think there's any of the 20, I believe there's 23 riders that are in the championship that I dislike. All of them are very competitive, and I can't wait to see this 2020 season start.
No, it'll be absolutely phenomenal, won't it? But
it will.
Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But one burning question which we wanted to talk about with you is, of course, episode number 1. We've got a MotoGP legend on board. Was it last year you made a legend? It was year before. Year before you made a legend in Austin. A lot of emotion in that press conference. Tell us a little bit about that and that sort of experience for you.
So I'm an emotional guy for whatever reason, and even after the fact, when I saw it, I said to myself, why did you break down so much? And I guess it's my passion that lives within me. It probably comes from my mother's side of that, my hard-headedness from my dad, but I don't know. It was just being accepted to a long road and long journey from when I was 12 years old, and I'm 60 now, so it was 58 when I was getting the award of being a legend, and to be in the group of people that are legends before me and the ones that are going to come really made me feel something warm, special, and very, very much gratitude.
Awesome.
So, and I still say, I promise you, I look up the word in definitions still today going, man, I don't know if I fit in any of that because it's a word that's so big and it can be held as big and so on. And I appreciate it. So yeah, it's still very new to me when somebody says legend and so on, but it's also a huge compliment. Huge.
Well, that's good, and it's got you in our car park today. So,
yeah. But listen, from my house in Sitges, it took me 25 minutes to get here, and I was driving around 20 minutes just to look for parking.
Yes.
So I finally messaged you, and
we should have really just reserved your space beforehand, shouldn't we? Knowing that you were coming, but
it's okay.
I'm just a mere presenter, not a coordinator.
Okay, so let's go back then. Obviously, MotoGP legend, like we said, emotional. Let's go back to your career then. And what does it take to beat the best? Because that's certainly what you did many, many a time. In doing so, yourself became one of them as well. But talk us through that, and when you sort of got to the height of your career, what does it take to really be at that level?
So I think the dedication, which was not really dedication, it was more of a fantasy hobby. It was being able to ride a motorcycle at 12 years old every day with my father. My father didn't ride, but he took me after work to go and ride in this field by our house in San Jose Airport, which is still over there in San Jose, where we still have the house. And, to win trophies, to be a kid, whether you in any sort of sport, man, you see the kids that have the little shelf in their bedroom with trophies. And, that just started to grow, very much so. And, being at 14 at 14, I signed a contract with Yamaha USA, and that's where I got the yellow leathers, the leather suits, because I was a protege of Kenny Roberts. My old manager, Jim Doyle, was the manager of Kenny Roberts. And, he got me this ride. So that got me into road racing. So speeding forward, obviously I went to New Zealand, did some racing in New Zealand, which got notoriety in Europe. Europe said, come, you need to get over here. But I was too young. And there's some photos on my Instagram of me at Imola at 17 years old back in 1977, where they wouldn't let me race. But I did a few demonstration laps and was super fast, would have been on the front row of it was a 200 mile, but they had a 250 support class there. 200 mile Daytona, 200 mile Imola, and 200 mile Paul Ricard. So moving things forward, in that era, and I can talk about Wayne Rainey, I can talk about Kenny, I can talk about Eddie Lawson, Jeff Ward, who went to Supercross eventually, but was a dirt tracker. We were all hot shoes, dirt trackers. And we came from that era. We were coming from different districts. I was Northern California, and they were Southern California. But the variety of motorcycles that we rode. And this is why I believe the euphoria of Americans when we came over, when Stevie Baker was the first one, Pat Hennon was the first American to win a Grand Prix for an American. But that was the start of something very big. And then the Europeans just said, how can you guys be so fast, whether it's in the rain or learning tracks and so on. And it was just a different degree of what we did in dirt track. And dirt track wasn't just ovals. It was TT courses and training with motocross and so on. And when you look at what's happening today in today's world of racing, it's exactly what we were doing.
Same format. Your hot shoes, is that the nickname?
Yeah, hot shoe. Yeah.
Amazing. I don't know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you had any eckling of the steel shoe when it was being made, the pictures and the stickers that they had for us being made were really, really cool. So, now we get over to Europe, and, I'm dealing with Kenny, who was, he was my idol, and Kenny's 7 years older than me. So Kenny's here, and it's 1979. I rock in. I'm just a kid. I'm riding a 250 and a 350 at the beginning of the year. That switches to a 250 and a 500. I get my first podium on the 500. I had a couple podiums with the 250, and I was running second at that time in the 250 class in the championship, my very first season. Racing with Barry Sheen, Kenny at Le Mans, which was the last race of the season. I finished second. Barry was just in front of me, and Kenny was just behind me. And I was just a kid, and I'm telling you, it was kind of more like a euphoria as opposed, I'm good, and I need to be here, and so on. It was just...
It's more just like, that was fun.
Yeah. Absolutely, because I'm a kid, and I still am, anyway. But it was the dedication and the work that you had to do. And I will say, at the beginning of those years, tire degradation and things like this was very abundant, and motorcycle failures and things like this were. And so, yes, although we trained, it was dirt track and doing things on the off season. It's not what it's like today to be a MotoGP rider, which we'll get into, I know, towards the end. And the dedication and knowing. So when we started competing, even when Freddie Spencer came and he won the titles, in 83, and in 83 it was 4 Americans, 1, 2, 3, 4. Eddie finished 4th in the championship. We all knew each other. We all knew each other ins and outs, and we knew that was a competition at every race. And it was just very unique times. And of course, we had the Uncinis, and we had the Marco Lucanelli, and these other riders that were in the championship, the Pons group, Christian Cerrone, these guys that were hot shoes on, especially on their own tracks, that you had to learn with. So I think just growing up in that atmosphere. And one of the things that I think helped the Australians, the Americans, coming to Europe is that you have to think about it. We didn't have satellite TV. Nobody had mobile phones, things like this. When we were there to do a job. And where the Europeans would go home, party, and do their own thing in between, we were, although camping or doing something, fishing or running or training or something like that, it was more that we're here to do a specific job. And none of us can really read the newspapers unless it was motorcycle news. MCN.
Makes sense.
So
because when we've spoken previously, I remember we've recorded previous segments for last year's season of the podcast, and you said that basically you guys came in and you ruined the sport by making it a job and professional and stuff. That's sort of true, isn't it?
What do you mean
Well, you turned it professional with the training, everything. You mentioned those guys going back to Europe and partying and stuff like that. You guys would think, right, we'll turn this to a proper professional sport. We're training, we're doing all the different types of riding, getting all the skills that we need, taking on the Europeans. It comes
with the sport in itself. As it becomes more and more professional, more and more popular, the equipment that the riders are racing on becomes incredibly indestructible. Which is very true. The tire manufacturers that are in this championship, Michelin at the moment now, creating a tire that tries to fit across everybody. Don't forget, we had competition. I've been on a podium with 3 different tire manufacturers, Michelin, Pirelli, and Dunlop. That just doesn't happen anymore in Grand Prix racing. So again, there was always something to be able to adapt to that we adapted, quite well.
And moving on to what it takes now, how has it changed what it takes to be the best? It's just sort of an exaggerated sort of minor gains every year sort of approach, I guess, when in terms of the rider's preparation side.
Well, I'll tell you, the first person that I think really started pushing limits was Wayne Rainey, and it was because of McDoohan, when McDoohan came over, and it was the training side of things. Then as we went to 4-stroke racing, as you know, we didn't have very many breakdowns. There were odds and ends. But the bikes that we raced, the motorcycles that we raced, whether it was for me, Honda, Cagiva, Suzuki, or Yamaha, some of our bikes were 120, 125 kilo. Now we're at 160 kilo. To push a motorcycle at 160 kilo at 355 kilometers per hour is what they did at Qatar this past weekend, it takes a really strong person and will to get that done, and as well as try to relax on the bike to save that energy for the whole race. So it is a completely different type of animal when it comes to that. But at the end of the day, what we rode and what they're riding now, it's not easy either way.
Well, no, it's definitely not easy either way. So let's talk about the best. You can certainly quite easily argue most people would say is currently Marc Marquez, with his incredible run in the championship, obviously beaten once since he moved up to the Premier class. What is it like for you watching Marc? What do you see in Marc on track, first of all, from a kind of rider's perspective or a competitor?
Is there a word spectacularism? Because if it's not, I'm making it. I'm making it as it goes along. Listen, I saw Marc riding a 250 motocross bike set up with his father for Super Motard when he was like 11 or 12 years old. I mean, again, he was the size of my pinky and the bike was bigger than 2 hands, but that's where he came from. And it's the same kind of background again I just talked about with Eddie Lawson and everybody doing the dirt track stuff. So one of the unique things is, Marc has been able to just get everything there is and more out of the motorcycles that he's been able to ride. And he has these, and I've said it before with Casey Stoner, because for me, they have cat-like features. I'm not really a cat person, But I know that cats, man, you turn them upside down and drop them, they get back on their feet. They're really quick and so on. And it just seems like, Marc has that kind of aptitude with everything that he does. And it's not luck anymore when it goes to saving those things. I mean, obviously, in certain corners and certain things that happen, it is a bit of luck. But Marc takes this 260 or 160 kilo motorcycle and turns it into a super motard. And when you watch guys ride a bike that's only 120 kilo or 100 kilo or 80 kilo or whatever on a super motard track, you'd see exactly what Marc's doing, how he's sliding it and so on.
I remember seeing a video when Joan Mir was moving up to MotoGP and he was training around in Mallorca, and he was on a super motard bike, and he was just basically trying to crash the thing and save it. Like his whole video. It was a couple of years ago, and he just was backing it into these corners, basically lying down and then trying to pick it back up again as he went on, and it was just, okay, this is the new way. Absolutely.
And the generations that come, this is what happens. The new younger riders, just get on a bike and they adjust, especially to the geometries and the things that the manufacturers are able to make because of the riders before. And technology just hands that to them. But it's up to the rider to be able to take it to that next level.
Have you seen the Dovizioso documentary?
I have not.
The Undaunted one.
No, I haven't.
It just come out. I recommend it because the point I wanted to bring up about it was it very much comes across as an hour-long feature on his season last year, and you just sort of, it's sort of painted in a way where it feels like Marquez has just got this ridiculous talent, everything you just mentioned, the cat-like features, just this unbelievable determination. And
I thought you were going to say it's just undaunted. I was like, no, wrong
no,
one.
don't say that. Wrong for which one? But Dovi is sort of using every kind of technology and method he possibly can to try and tackle Marc's, should we say, raw grit, to put it in an umbrella term. And it was just really fascinating to have the times where he's it opens in the first 10 minutes, and he's even using a psychologist, and he's watching the race, and every time he has a thought where he's not focused on the race, the screen goes blank, and you just watch it go blank, 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 and it's learning how to remain 100% focused. And it's just sort of, I mean, I can't imagine you guys would have ever done something like that back in the day.
I don't know why you looked at me there.
No. I saw your hand go up, I was like, is she putting a hand up?
Sorry, it was the fringe problems.
I mean, I think I saw some interviews, of Dovi and other riders, talking about Marc, and Cal Crutchlow is one of the guys that tests a lot of the bikes and so on. He just says you have to always take Marc out of the equation because he rides anything and how he approaches it and so on and so forth. But it's very very interesting to see and to watch and to understand. And Dovi to be finishing second in the last couple of years, behind Marc, what do they got to do to beat this guy? Because it's week in and week out. One of the things that we've seen with other riders is usually when you're pressured, they can make errors. And, Marc was under a lot of pressure in 2018 to win. And what I'm getting at is the Ducati was so fast in the straight line that Dovi knew that he would have a chance of staying with that Marquez down the straight and pass or make maneuvers and so on. But when Honda stepped up in 2019 and gave Marc similar speed with their engine, that reduced the pressure on Marc to have to go in so deep into the corners. And I think there were a lot less, accidents and or things that had happened. That's always the thing. But, they're all out there. As you know, they just finished testing. The testing's over. And we're going to go to Qatar in 2 weeks' time. And we're going to see where this all ends up.
Yeah.
And but they all have their issues. They all have troubles. It's just he who handles them the best. And you have to have that.
So, quick side note about the season ahead then. It would appear from testing so far that Ducati may have just gained back that top speed edge a little bit on the paddock. Do you think that could add an extra interesting dimension? Obviously, we've seen a little bit of drama at Honda Mainly in Qatar and Sepang, it was just, well, got a rookie, 2 guys are injured, and then Crutchlow doing most of the
work,
the testing. But Qatar, definitely on the first couple of days, it's like, oh, a bit of an interesting frisson of worry seemed to be coming out of that garage. And Ducati, few different concerns for them, but certainly straight line speed. Jack Miller just said it's unreal.
What puzzles me is Qatar, Sepang, Ducati, and then Qatar, Ducati. It hasn't really been outstanding. Dobie hasn't ripped up the pavement and moved forward. But what's been very interesting is watching Bagnaia at times being fast, Ducati. Also, Jack Miller, Jack Zarco, who's just getting on the bike. So we know that the Ducati's working with different riding styles. It's whether or not that riding style can take it to the very top.
Yeah.
And then we see, obviously, a cluster of Yamahas and the 2 Suzukis. I just wish we had 4 Suzukis out there because they're...
I think Davide Brivio would agree with you.
But, I don't read too much into that because we all know what's going to happen coming towards that weekend. It's whether or not how simplified they've all made it to be able to make the race runs and each individual how much they feel. If you look back at last year's race, you remember who crossed the line? Right, drafting. And
same as the year before.
Yeah. And Dobie passed him. But you know who was 0.6 behind in 5th place? 0.6 behind. Valentino on a Yamaha. So here's a guy that's 40 years old at the time, finishing in 5th, 0.6 off.
Yeah,
this is crazy. The kind of race we're going to be up for. This
is the right race. Gesture.
And so the issues that we've seen with Ducati and the discussions that we're always hearing, the bike doesn't turn enough and so on. I haven't heard any more clarification if it's worked better. All I see is that Jack Miller's fast sometimes in 4th place, but only 0.1 or 0.2. And it's that 0.1 or 0.2 of consistency that ends up being 5 or 6 seconds at the end of a race. So I'm really excited to see, how that all plays out.
Something I wanted to ask you about, so on the subject of how everyone's developed their bikes and whatnot, throwing it back to your career, was how it feels to ride on less competitive machinery when you're doing, or should we say for you, in your case, when you're doing a development job, when you're with Cagiva in the sort of twilight years of your career. What is it like being ultra competitive and then one year your bike's less competitive, you're not able to get the results that you're used to? How do you get your head around that, motivation and all that jazz?
For me, it's almost like playing golf. I don't know if you ever played golf. And the reason why I'm going to say that, reason why I'm going to say that is because you can be on the hardest hole on the golf course and par it. And you can be on the easiest hole on the golf course and do a triple bogey, which is three shots over. That's golf. With racing, especially when I got on the Cagiva, I'd already raced for the Suzuki as a factory, Honda and Yamaha. And again, with another manufacturer such as Cagiva, top speed is what we were down. So I just had to wait for circuits that were favorable for my riding style and/or it didn't need speed. And I'd have to be grateful for that. I remember one specifically, I think I finished 5th and Mick Doohan was just in front of me on the Honda. I mean, literally length of this table. So for me, that was a huge success to have that bike doing that. And then, I gave them their very first podium and so on. But it's about being strong and being being fast. Alex Barros was my teammate the first year. And I'd come off of Yamaha. I was 2nd in the World Championship, 3rd in the World Championship in 86, and then 87, backed it up with a 2nd. And when Wayne Gardner won, go to Cagiva. And when I went there, Barros was so fast. He was this new young kid. I think he was 18, 19, or 20 or something like that. And I told Cagiva, you got to let him go. You've got to let him get onto a bike that has something because he's so fast.
Very noble.
Yeah. No, it was. It was. He was incredibly...
I don't think any of the current crop would have that sort of recommendation.
Yeah.
Keep him there.
So the unique thing is through my career and looking at the things, although that I never won a title, and but I always felt that I feel that I have in a indirect way. I just never got the top points, because when I came into the championship and I faced Kenny face to face when I was racing for Suzuki in 1980, it went down to the last race, and my bike broke. I finished 5th in the race. Kenny finished 4th, but I had to win the race, and it was in the old Nürburgring. And I was leading it by 5 or 6 seconds, and something happened to the bike. So I lost the title, or I didn't gain the title. But the very next year, I beat Kenny. Kenny was 3rd. And he was, already 3 times world champion. And unfortunately, Lucanelli beat me. So, however, and, Lucanelli won 1 title. And, I kept going forward and jumping on different bikes and kind of replicating the same thing, finishing 2nd or 3rd, gaining some medals, but never that number 1 spot. And then getting to it, and I really praise Eddie Lawson, because he's kind of this silent rider. He was so quiet, didn't want to do the press, kept to himself. I knew him very well because we were dirt tracking together, and water skiing and all that kind of stuff. But when it came down to the last year that I raced with Yamaha, we were to try to be the number 1 Yamaha team, because it was Agostini with Philip Morris, Marlboro, and it was Kenny Roberts' team with Lucky Strike. And, I did the job that we did. I beat Eddie right down to it, and he was already 3 times world champion again. So for me, all those things is I've beaten all those champions, Gardner, Doohan, in races, head-to-heads, and so on. It just didn't work out. And walking away from that, which I've never done. I'm still here. I've never really had a chance to say I'm leaving, but because I'm not. It's my sport. I love this sport and what I do, and I'll have my own theories on specific things and what happens and so on.
That's why you're here. That's why we're asking.
But I think that it would be something. It's one thing about doing podcasts. I love doing television, and I'd love to be back involved somehow with it. I'll be at the races this year. I look forward to the fans, mixing with the fans. Again, he who follows me, I'll try to answer as much as I can on my own Instagram.
But please don't spam.
Yeah. Can't sign autographs all day.
Yeah, exactly. But, so.
You must feel then, almost psychologically, it sounds like you don't have too many unanswered questions. Do you feel pretty zen about it? Although you maybe didn't get the title that you would have set out to get.
I am one of the most accomplished racers racing a Grand Prix bike.
Well, and that's why you're a legend, you see.
Why I'm saying that is the diversity that I had. I didn't ride just one bike. I didn't ride just one tire. I didn't ride. And then when Kenny, for all the fans that, or the people that sit behind and think that Kenny fired me for some specific reason, it was a business side of things that we didn't get along with on that one subject. And, he decided not to take me, and I went to Gajiva. But I think Kenny came around. We are still great friends. Came around and asked me to come back because I was the test rider for Yamaha and Dunlop when Wayne got injured. And this is why I'm based myself out of Spain for most of these years, because you have to be somewhere close to Europe in order to go to all the Grand Prix. And we had the first dirt track out there, which is Rocco's Ranch now. It was Roberts before, and how this all started.
It's right next to the Circuit of Barcelona as well.
Right,
yeah.
right.
If you sit on the back part of the track and then there are people doing the anything two-wheeled, pretty much, you can just look over the back, can't you?
Yes, yeah.
It's quite fun.
And the first two-seat bike was created in Villanova in Kenny's workshop.
Yes, right.
Back in 1996. Huh. So when you think about it, and I rode it one time. And then Yamaha came back to me in, I think it was 99 or 2000. And then we did it with Yamaha. And obviously it's been with Ducati. This will be my 18th year with Ducati and Philip Morris.
Have you enjoyed scaring a few people on that?
I try not to scare them, but that, that's the easiest thing to do. The hardest thing is to give them a ride that makes them super excited and would like to come back. So.
Without then...
Yeah. Well, so that obviously opportunity of doing like the two-seater, and given the fact that you've never left the paddock despite stopping racing, I feel a lot of that's to do with your character, your personality, and how you. It seems though, looking back and looking through the history books, obviously being a bit younger, I did not witness it in person. You're one of the original showmen of the sport, it seems, but I want to know about that from your perspective. Is that just how you are? Were you inspired by somebody from another sport? Because when did sort of showmanship come around in sport in that sort of aspect?
Man, you need another whole segment on podcasting.
We got time.
And the reason why I'm going to say that is, I don't know if you know, prior to motorcycling, I was a drummer. And I was born in 1959. As you all know, I'm 60 years old. I was born in 1959, and the Beatles came to the United States early 60s, 62, 63, when I was 4 or 5. And there was a television show, and you can look it up on YouTube, the Ed Sullivan Show. And anybody who was anybody, Herman's Hermits, the Rolling Stones, or whoever singer it was, they were on that show. And when the Beatles came, I just wanted to be one of them. I loved music, and I still do to this day. And my parents bought me a set of drums for my 8th birthday. And believe it or not, my drum teacher was the drummer for Tom Jones when Tom Jones had his own show in America. Wow. And I had an opportunity to ride a Honda 50, a monkey bike, when I was 11 and a half from a friend. And I fell in love, like any kid, if you're able to ride. But my parents, my father was the only one that worked, and my parents couldn't afford drum lessons and or a motorcycle and so on. So my mother actually did away with carpet for the house that particular year. And we still are the original owners of the house from 1950.
Really?
I gave up drumming, and the drum teacher was in tears.
Really?
Yeah, because I could read music and play just almost anything. So with that showmanship, I was part of a band already and doing things for my grade school and so on. It gave me an insight of being an entertainer. And no matter how we look at it, sporting is entertainment. And then the rapport I always got with the fans. I love making people laugh or, joking around. But Kenny and all of us Americans at that time did funny things all the time in the paddocks. So it was always something about joking and so on. And then it was about throwing boots into the crowd or go sitting with the crowd and things like that. So I guess this is why also I've been called the people's champion at times. And it's quite funny because when I'm at the Grand Prix or at special events, you see the fathers that are my age or a little bit younger or maybe even 30 years younger, and they were just growing right at the end of my career. They're telling, you should have seen this guy. You should have seen him ride. You should have seen, I did have a hair-raising style. If you look at my style on the Honda, I had my right foot or my left foot off the foot peg because the Honda seat was so wide. I rode how I needed to ride to ride bikes. The difference now is engines were being created. 3-cylinder Honda was being created because it had a torquey engine. When Honda came in, that started eating up the bikes that we were riding on the older 4-cylinders. So new 4-cylinders had to be built from a square 4 Suzuki to a V4, things like this. And those are the unique things that I could always talk about, through the learning stages of what we were doing. The first set of tire warmers, first set of carbon brakes, all these kind of things that kids are used to now. Pretty much everywhere.
Grew up on.
Yes.
Essentially. And with the showmanship and everything you managed to do since, obviously ambassador for, co-founder, I think, of Riders for Health, and which is now Two Wheels for Life. You've met some probably more amazing people than actually a lot of world champions in the sport have actually got to meet. Who's sort of someone who you felt you were pretty starstruck by, that you managed to meet?
It's quite funny to meet people like Daniel Day-Lewis and Keanu Reeves, who kind of is one of our friends now because he comes to so many races.
See him regularly.
This guy. But meeting Princess Anne was something very special, and then being invited to the palace a couple of times for special events for people who do things for charities or are founders for charities was something special. And it's really unique because don't forget, I come from a country that doesn't have a queen or a king. And so therefore I look at it completely different, where you British sometimes really make so much fun about a parody about things and so on, which I understand because don't worry, we have a president we're making a lot of parody about. But in saying that, to be invited to some place like that, for me, it's not so much a holy place, but it was something very pure.
Yes.
And for me, yes, there's scandals in everything we see and do in politics and so on, but it was something very, very special. And Princess Anne herself is somebody who really was very unique. When I decided to give money back in mid 80s, believe it or not, and then she was the one who actually said to me, we'd like you to go to Africa to see where this money is being spent, because I was donating it at the time to Save the Children, who she's the president of. And, that just turned into things. So she actually come to a few races, and then to give Prince Harry a ride on the 2-seat bike at Donington.
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. I mean, I just can't believe.
Did you scare him?
No, I tell you who was scared were the guys that were, how do you call the guys that look after him?
Like the minders.
The minders?
Kind of, yeah.
They were in a car behind us. They were in a car.
Keeping up.
No, they weren't keeping up, but they were in the BMW behind us. And it was all, it was almost like one of those things, you drop them and I'll kill you. And there was, I'll tell you, and the reason why I say you drop them and I kill you, because Stefano Domenicali, who was the head of Ferrari Formula One, said that to me just moments before I took Michael Schumacher around Mugello at the Grand Prix. So, and that was when Michael was battling for the World Championship in 2006 with Fernando Alonso, and Silverstone was that next week. So these are the unique things. But I will say, everybody who comes with me on the 2-seat bike or with Franco on this bike comes off really appreciative of what riders do. We have to adjust to every passenger that we have. It's one of the greatest tools, and it was Kenny Roberts' mind to build that thing. And it's something that's so unique. We never tried to scare anybody, as I said, with the project. I can't wait until we start it. We're going to use it in Texas this year. It'll be the first time. I'm already starting the racetrack, because that's a long lap for a MotoGP bike.
That hill.
2 minutes and two. Yeah, but the hill's not going to be much for us, because we start and stop on the on the
That's
start
true.
line.
Yeah, you're not approaching that from
So I'm really looking forward to having it in America again, since Laguna Seca disappeared on us, and of course Indianapolis.
2-seat around Laguna.
Yeah.
Did you do that?
Yes, for many years. Oof. And that was always really fun, because Hollywood was just down the road. So you guys would always come up and be able to get on the bike.
And it's one of the most beautiful racetracks and places in the world.
Yes.
And, didn't they put, I think Suzuki had Hopkins up down Hollywood Boulevard or something, actually.
I was there as well, on the 2-seater.
Wow.
Yeah. One of the first ones that we did was right there on Hollywood.
Wow. Right
in front of the Chinese theater.
Excellent.
Yeah, with Dorna. It was awesome.
Many fans about.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, again, in America, there's so many things to do. Seems to be, and it is so big. But Texas is always that place that they always seem to come to, because the town of Austin is wicked.
Great. I love it.
It is wicked. It is just proper for us to go in there and have a good time. And for anybody who's thinking about going to a Grand Prix, that's one that's super fun.
High recommend, seconded.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So
the any Grand Prix that is in a place that starts with AUS tends to be very good. Austria, Australia.
Not
Austin.
that we're biased at all.
No,
definitely the 3 best by miles.
Cool.
So meeting people, and but also just dignitary people about the sport. The Australian corporation works so well with the riders and everybody when we go down there. It's such a far place to go to. As you know, Phillip Island can be tough with the weather and all those kind of things. Everything that we seem to do, we do it really well, because we have people that have been in place for many, many years, and it's super fun.
So you come into Austin to 2-seater. You were there, you were there last year anyway.
Yeah, I go there every year. I represent. I've been an ambassador for Monster for over 12 years now. So I'll be doing a lot of things for them. I'm with Alpine Star, Arai helmets, and those. And I'm not giving any fanship for them and so on. It's just that. But listen, I've been with Alpine Star for 43 years since 1977. And with Arai helmets for 33 or 34. So I'm a part of their family, and so on. And with Michelin, I'm doing some special things. Even this year, I might be doing a course up in Sweden with them, just after Le Mans Grand Prix and before Mugello. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I'll be in Texas.
You're just as busy now as you were.
Yeah.
But
I would say that sounds like more busy.
Yeah. I would agree.
But more fun, more diversity of what I get to do. So
Exactly.
And when we go to Texas, we have Moto America there, and so I want to ask you about, as an American rider, the state of American motorcycle racing, because if you watch sort of various documentaries and things online about what Americans go to race, everything's sort of channeled towards Supercross because that's where the money is, that's where you can become high profile. So you have got this lack of road races. What's your thoughts on that, and where can we find, how do we need to nurture the new talent?
it's a tough one. It's one of the best guys in the seat is Wayne Rainey at the moment, the president of the corporation there of Moto America, and his team around him.
You couldn't really do better if you were looking through the CVs of who's going to head
No,
this up.
and now with I think the help of a lot of people even here in Spain have gotten up towards television and a good channel, and so I think it's I'm not sure if it's Fox Sports or whatever, but it's one of the bigger channels that's on there. And that's what's needed to try to get sponsors. The problem is America is so big and everything's driven around cars and so on, and it always has been. But for some reason along the line with road racing, it kind of lost something before the Moto American signal took it over. And when it lost that, it lost a lot of sponsorship and it lost a lot of ground to try to make that up. And talking to Wayne and talking to these Kenny Roberts and so on, the only way for me to work, and now we have a Moto2 team, USA teams in MotoGP, and Joe Roberts is racing for it, is only way of trying to get somebody over here because, as you know, there's so many Europeans, Asians and everything with the Asian Cups and so on that it's very demanding for everyone, including for Dorna, to accept and put the right keys and people in right positions. Yeah. But we do need Americans. Let's hope that Joe on the Kalex this year can step that up. I can't remember the name of the rider at the moment that's racing for Yamaha on World Superbike.
Garrett Gerloff.
Yeah, Gerloff. That's it. Gerloff is another rider that's very talented. Mm-hmm. He's going to wave the American flag there. Whether or not he can raise it to the level he needs to be, I don't know the performance of the bike that he's on and so on, but those are always something very positive. Supercross is quite not simple, but it's taken years to build. No, but they have 17 races in a row with one break. So it's a great series. It's on television. It's live. One of the things that is mandatory is every rider has to stand at their own stand with the bikes at 5 p.m. and sign autographs, their own posters. It's really gone toward the fan. So it's a 3-hour, 2.5 hour, or 3 hour program on TV. And so you can be in the paddock with all the riders and see things. And then Monster Energy sponsors it. And they have always some sort of activities that are going on with a boxing ring or Thai boxing or whatever. Go into the stadium, see the opening show with fireworks and so on, which is typical American.
I was going to say it's very American.
But
I say that with
an
love,
amazing show,
but also a smile.
But 100%. But if you ever watch baseball or American football or especially basketball, always got the cameras on the kids, having the kids dance or do something fun when there's commercial breaks, which there's a lot of, and so on. So those are unique things about what happens there. But whether or not we can turn that around, it's yet to be seen.
It's going to take a lot because they've got their own problems on the dirt as well, because where they focus it on Supercross, well, they've got a lack in road racing, but also they get whipped at Motocross of Nations every year.
One of the things that's building one of the things that's building quite rapidly again is dirt tracking. The mile, half mile, the TT, and all of that. It's coming on strong, and the people that took that over have got it on TV. And what they've done is instead of trying to go live, they do it taped live, but every Thursday night it's on at 8:00. So you can dial it in like a Supercross every 8:00. So people put that record button and it grows. And now people are going back to dirt track racing.
Well, I guess we have to wish the very best of luck to Joe Roberts in the American racing team.
We do. I think it was a pretty good test last time out in Jerez.
Yeah, it was. So. And they got, of course, friend of the show last year, our special analyst, John Hopkins, helping them this year as a rider coach. So, it's all setting up very nicely for them, isn't it?
It's the step. I mean, again, when you look at the basis of all the teams Japanese or Italian or and so on, and the people that are running them, the mechanics that are working there. It doesn't matter if they're Italian or French or whatever mechanics. They've all worked for us in the past anyway, even the older generation. Coulomb, you know. It's just that you need an American team that a rider can feel comfortable being there and doing his job.
Yeah.
Because you're up against a lot of fast Europeans now.
I bet. So
A lot of them.
Shall we roll on to the crucial quickfire?
The crucial
Kenwood.
Kenwood quickfire.
Yes, thank you very much to Kenwood for being our sponsor for the podcast this season. We'll be doing a quickfire every single interview, and it's going to come in a couple of formats.
Have we warned him?
Have we warned you? No.
No.
Oops. Well, welcome, Randy, to the Kenwood Quickfire. So for this episode, we're going to do a bit of word association. But in
It's not
futures,
too bad.
yeah, the fans are going to get
If
involved
you
as
say
well.
anything that later you think, oh no, please let us know.
I'll try to catch you out.
Listen, as you can already see, I talk too much. And so on,
But we thought you could do word association because you're quite a trustworthy candidate for that. But of course, as mentioned, in the future, by the way, everybody who's watching or listening, you should be able to get involved with the Kenwood Quickfire as well. We will inform you who we're interviewing and then ask for those questions as well. And there's another format of it as well, which will be coming later in the year as well, which would be very exciting.
And much like we ask a certain level of decorum with your answers now, Randy, we'd ask the same of the fans sending in any quickfire questions.
Yes,
Keep it clean.
There's one fan who always sends in a social media question, which always says, would you rather fight 10 duck-sized horses? 10 duck-sized horses or 1 horse-sized duck or something ridiculous like that?
We did have that before,
Yeah.
and every time, still going.
Still ask it every time. But anyways, let's roll on with it, shall we? Right, we have the list here. I'll do one and then you do one, shall we?
Okay then, I'm ready.
500s. What is the first thing that pops to your mind in that sort of case?
awesome.
California.
Home.
Kajiva.
Am I making this too boring?
No?
No?
This is how it's supposed to be.
Kajiva. A special time of my life.
Belgium.
Love of my life.
Maybe
My
a bit,
wife.
Yeah. Okay, I was going to ask you the context for that one.
Yeah, because I couldn't stand the weather there.
Well, hey, easy. It's a bit like England. It's not California or Barcelona for that matter. Motocross.
Spectacular.
Fatherhood.
Toughest job.
Rossi.
I think that sound can count, you know.
Yeah, I can.
It does, yeah.
Extremely awesome. I there's not enough words to say with when you say the word Rossi 46 VR. You know, everybody knows it.
It's true. Quartararo.
Fun kid, super kid,
Marquez.
Superman.
That was a good answer.
That was good. Training.
Worth it.
Dirt track.
Steel shoe.
Cats.
Dogs.
That's the next one, actually. Did you see this?
Cats.
You did.
I love them, but not all of them.
I think that's
Dogs.
the same with everybody.
Fair
Dogs.
play.
I love them all.
Assen.
One of my favorites.
Spa-Francorchamps.
Definitely one of the favorites. Iconic.
And your Twitter name, isn't it?
It is indeed, because my name's Fran, so it's always a nice pun.
Misano.
My last victory.
1979.
Special year, you know. First year Grand Prix.
Music.
Definitely a love of my life as well.
Roberts.
Man. Friendship. Without talking.
Excellent.
Because the friendship doesn't have to last. We don't talk for a year or whatever. But when I call him up, what are you doing, asshole? That's Kenny saying it to me.
Right?
Hey, Kenny, I'm usually calling him for his birthday because it's the 31st.
We
It's
all
New
have
Year's
friends
Eve.
like that, don't we? I think it comes also with the lifestyle of MotoGP as well, like traveling, being so busy with work. It's you see your friends once a year and then you message them monthly. It's fine.
You know, the other thing is, and I've stated this in the past, is when somebody says, who do you think is the absolute best rider and so on, anybody who's listening to this, you take a look at any footage that you can find of the Houston Astrodome races, short track TT or Ascot TT and so on, and you watch what the guys were riding, such as Kenny and so on, and this is where it comes from. Mm-hmm. You know, to be a grand national champion, you had to do short track, half mile. TT met with a jump that was in the middle of it, and of course road racing, and yet to win those things, and he won it 3 times. But it wasn't just about that, it's what he could do with a motorcycle. And I think some of that even showed when he rode the TZ around Indy Mile the one year, a few years ago.
Final word, Fran?
The final word is, predictably, legend.
I don't understand.
What's the first thing that pops to your mind when we say the word legend?
Wow. I mean, I'm flabbergasted by it. I'm really, again, it's a word that's very powerful.
Yeah.
And to be fair for Zarco, when Zarco said, why is Randy being called a legend when he's never won a world championship? And, you know, it made me think about that I would never get to that status anyway. But it didn't matter to me. What mattered to me is my own feelings. The status of what I had, the respect of what I had. You know, still I can walk into Honda's garage. The Japanese, from older to newer, still know me. The people in the paddock respect and so on. And I just think it gave me another lease of a different type of life. If you can call us royalty of Dorna, or, you know, of MotoGP or Grand Prix racing.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And I would like to say the fact that, you know, I raced in years that were tremendously tough, awesome. We fought for safety, to the safety of what it is today, with the racetracks, and continues to grow because of us. You know, and that's the unique part about what we did. So, legend, overwhelmed.
Well, I think that's a good note to finish on.
Good note,
thank you for Kenwood again for sponsoring the quickfire round.
Thank you, Kenwood.
Yes. And Randy, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. I hope you invite me back.
Yeah, we will.
It's not a year later.
Yeah, exactly.
I might not have as much hair.
And I'm hoping I still have the same amount of hair. So, okay. Well, thanks, Randy.
Thanks
and the next episode of the podcast will be after the Qatar GP. So make sure you stay tuned for that.
That'll be the full debrief of the season opener, which, as we teased a little bit earlier in this episode, should be another amazing opener for the year. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Listen, this the last thing, if you guys want to record this, and if you
always keep it rolling.
We're fine. The camera guys are the ones who want to go.
3 minutes, if that. MotoGP at this moment is hard to predict. It is incredibly talented with a number of riders, and those number of riders are 22 or 23, and sometimes we have wild cards, and so on and so forth. And where I'm getting at with that is, not everybody always finishes last. Sometimes those guys that are at the end, tail end, get to the middle, and sometimes a little bit farther, because everybody has that amount of talent. What I find extremely, extremely raw and incredible is that we have different height of riders, different weight of riders, different machinery with different engineers with different ideas. And yet, after 6 days of testing in 2 different countries, and we're going into this racing season, it's a crapshoot. It is really a crapshoot.
Yeah.
And it's going to be he who doesn't crash and he who gains those points every single weekend and so on. And I think it's a testament to what our industry and our engineers and the riders do, because as we talk about with Marquez, not everybody is a Marc Marquez, but there are guys that are 0.3 or 0.4 behind him in 15th place that are that close. And that's what's unique about us. So enjoy 2020, MotoGP fans.
See you later, guys.
Couldn't agree more.